Hey there. Welcome to the CMMC Compliance Guide Podcast. I'm Stacy.
And I'm Brooke.
From Justice IT Consulting, where we help businesses like yours navigate CMMC and NIST 800-171 compliance. We're hired guns getting companies fast-tracked to compliance, but today we're here to give you all the secrets for free. So if you want to tackle it yourself, you're equipped to do so. Let's dive into today's episode and keep your business on track. Today we're covering a fun one. The biggest myths every shop believes about CMMC. From cloud to vendors to firewalls. There are a lot of misconceptions floating around, and if you believe them, you could fail your assessment. All right, Brooke. So the first one we hear a lot is, if we just keep all CUI in the cloud, we're safe and out of scope. Is that true or false?
Well, it's true if you can actually keep all your CUI in the cloud and not touch anything else. Sure, then it's true. But you really have to think about that. If you're talking about in the cloud, a lot of times people are talking about a ERP or MRP or whatever it is that's accessed through a browser. So you access that system through a browser, and more than likely that CUI is going to be cached on your machine somewhere. If you download documents to view them and click on a PDF to view it, I hate to tell you this, but it downloads it as cache, and anytime any of that touches your computer, any of that CUI touches your computer, then it's in scope. So, and you have to worry about that. So it is rare to you can configure it if you have a VDI instance for instance, if you have that, then yeah, and that's your cloud. Then yes, as long as it's configured properly, then yes, that could be all in scope right there, just in the cloud. But that's rarely the case.
Another big one we hear is, my software vendor says they're CMMC compliant, so we're covered. Would that be good enough?
Well, that's a good start. That is a good start. That is not a good finish. I can't tell you how many that we've run across that said, yeah, we're CMMC compliant. We're good. You can use us. And then when you dig into it, you're like, well, yeah, but we have some problems. Either we're storing CUI or want to store CUI in your environment, but you're not FedRAMP, or you're not FedRAMP authorized or FedRAMP equivalent, right? Or you're not CMMC level 2 certified, whatever you need to be. So if they're cloud, it's going to be FedRAMP. Or they say, we've got some statements on our website that show how we are compliant. So you really need to delve into it and understand that this is all about scoping. All goes back to scoping and documentation. Their documentation. So, but you need to really delve into it, figure out where your CUI and FCI is going to be, and therefore what they would have to meet, and see if they meet it. So there are very few software vendors. Relatively few software vendors that really are CMMC compliant, which would be, if you're going to be storing CUI there, that would be FedRAMP authorized, FedRAMP moderate authorized or higher, or FedRAMP equivalent. So authorized or equivalent are the key words there. So there are relatively few that actually have that capacity. Otherwise, you're going to want to bring that stuff in-house, or not store CUI in there, or figure something out. And if you're not talking about CUI and you're talking about, a security protection asset, say it's a SIM provider, a security event and information monitoring. Maybe I got that backwards, but a SIM that monitors all your logs. If it's cloud-based, it doesn't have to be FedRAMP moderate authorized or equivalent, but you do a customer responsibility matrix is very, very helpful. Assessors are going to want to see that customer responsibility matrix based on the NIST 800-171 controls, not just some made up CRM. So it's going to, and I say made up, but they're going to want to see it based on NIST 800-171. If it's based on NIST 853, they can probably do the crosswalk pretty easily. And they should. If they're assessors, they ought to be able to do that crosswalk pretty easily. If it's based on other standards, you're going to make it a lot tougher on them. And while they might be able to do the crosswalk, not all standards just because they have similar controls don't mean you have to meet them the same way. So they don't necessarily match up. That's why assessors want to see those CRMs based on customer responsibility matrix based on NIST 800-171 controls, CMMC controls.
Something else we hear pretty often is if we use two-factor login on our ERP or email, that should be good enough, right?
Yeah, no, it's not. So, people don't realize that wherever you have your CUI, wherever you access it remotely or over a network, you have to have MFA enabled. So that may mean that you have to have MFA enabled on your computer login and as well on your cloud provider login if you're storing CUI there. Really, if it's any cloud provider, I'll tell you right now that you just might as well go ahead and make sure that your cloud providers, whether it stores CUI or not, has MFA available and set up because there's no cloud service that I can imagine that I would suggest setting up without MFA, which is very strange because there are quite a few bank sites that actually don't offer MFA. I'll just set a good password. That's great, but no, it's you need to really sit down and that's scoping again, figure out where the CUI is located at and where that MFA needs to be implemented.
Something else we hear sometimes is our firewall makes everything inside it compliant. What do you have to say about that, Brooke?
It'd be nice. It'd be really nice, but it doesn't. It can help, absolutely. That's your edge protection, and that's certainly part of the controls. But you need to have, the SIM we just talked about a minute ago, the security information and event monitoring. Actually, I take that back. You don't have to have a SIM. Let me make that clear. You don't have to have a SIM, but if you read all the controls and everything, it's really written so that you need a SIM. If you don't have a SIM helping you look through all those logs, you're sorely missing out. And I would argue you're really not that secure if you don't have a SIM or something watching the logs helping you, because that is tens of thousands of log entries to pour through, and I can almost guarantee you're not doing it. So it doesn't require a SIM, but it kind of requires a SIM. So. But to go back to your question about the firewall, it's certainly a very important part of it, and you need to configure it, make sure everything's scoped properly. But you need to make sure your network and all the endpoints behind it are scoped properly and secured, VLANed, however you need to subnet it, however you need to divide it up. You need to scope your environment, draw out your boundary, and figure that out, and then implement all the controls like the SIM, like an antivirus, like everything else is going to be part of that. So yes, firewall is one part of it.
So what about the idea if we don't print CUI and only view it on our screens, we avoid scope?
Well, there's a few things there. So if you just view it on a computer, that's great, unless it's a VDI situation where you've secured it properly, then that endpoint you're viewing it on is going to be in scope. Also, the people viewing it, people are part of your assets, and they're in scope as well. So they'll have to be authorized to be able to view CUI. While if you've got a VDI environment set up, maybe that endpoint is not in scope, and that'd be great. Guess what? The people looking at it are in scope. So they have to be authorized. One way or another, they have to be authorized to be able to view that.
Here's another one to throw at you. So if everything is in the cloud, there's nothing for attackers to get locally, right?
That goes back to, I think, the first question we talked about, but that is untrue. It is not accurate. So if everything's in the cloud, that's great. But when you access it, unless it's, again, we'll talk about the VDI solution, unless it's a VDI solution that's configured properly, that clipboard access is disabled, the map drives are disabled, and all that kind of fun stuff, then if that's configured properly, the VDI, that's correct. The endpoint is not in scope. Anything else other than that, your endpoint's likely going to be in scope because you touch on those CUI files. Your computer, for one, it caches those files. The control, all the controls that discuss CUI is processing, storing, and transmitting CUI. So if you click on that document, again, we're not talking about a VDI environment, but a VDI, I've said this about 100 times in this podcast, is virtual desktop infrastructure. So, if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's a protected way that you could set up that environment, a remote way to get to that environment as well. So, but it's a whole thing. But aside from VDI, that computer, if you click on a piece of CUI, it's going to process on that computer so it can read it and open it up. It's going to store a cache, a portion of that on the local computer. So you've got that computer is in scope. So store it all in the cloud doesn't mean no risk. It helps out with the risk, no doubt, if your cloud environment is properly configured. But it does not reduce all the risk.
So here's a fun one. Cyber insurance will handle incident detection reporting for us. True or false?
They will not handle I guess they may help with the reporting and tell you where you need to report it at, maybe. Generally, cyber insurance, they're going to require you to have your incident response plan, and they're going to require certain things to be in your incident response plan. And they're also usually going to require that you hire I don't know about usually. I don't know the percentage, but a lot of times they're going to require you to use their forensics companies or partners to help investigate that incident, right? So they help with those incidents, and that forensics company is going to help manage that incident. But with CMMC, at least as far as CMMC goes, we're not talking about any state reporting or anything else, or other countries or anything like that, or other industries other than DoD. As far as CMMC goes, you already know where you need to report that, and that's the DC3. And you have to have your medium assurance certificate already installed on at least a computer, hopefully 2 or 3 computers, just in case one of those is in the line of fire. But you know that you'll need to report the incident there within 72 hours. So you already know that, but those cyber insurance companies with their forensics teams that help them investigate these things, they're probably going to help guide you through that process. You just need to make sure that you've documented it properly and included what they want you to do in your incident response plan. They're going to guide every part of it, from reporting to talking to legal counsel to when to restore, how to restore, all that kind of fun stuff. And depending on what kind of incident it is, of course.
So, last myth of the episode. If I log in from home, that doesn't matter as long as it's secure.
Well, that could be true. Again, we're going to refer back to the VDI instance, right? If you secured that properly, then that could be true. But you also have to make sure that your remote workplaces, your alternate work sites, meet all the proper controls. So you have to be aware of that. You have to know that it can be home, but you need to make sure that you've taken all the proper precautions. Using a VDI instance makes that a lot easier, but it does not absolve you of all risk, and does not make it okay to do anything anywhere. So again, it matters where and how you view that CUI. Hopefully from your VDI setup, you've not allowed printing to anywhere, because that would be a big no-no. But yes, home computers do count, and generally what you're going to want to do is not let home computers touch your environment. You're still going to want to access that VDI from something that you can control. That way, it's not just wide open to anything. So now what you control doesn't necessarily have to be in scope if it's a VDI instance, but you don't want to allow just anything to connect to it.
So, just wrapping everything up for our listeners, it seems like the biggest takeaway here with all of these myths that you've demystified for us is that cloud, vendors, firewalls, and insurance aren't silver bullets for CMMC compliance. You'll still need local controls, our favorite, proper documentation, and FedRAMP-ready platforms to pass an assessment.
Yes, that is correct. And you don't necessarily, most of that you do need. You don't necessarily need a FedRAMP provider, only if you have CUI in the cloud somewhere. Yes, I mean, you need to scope your environment properly and then build it out properly. None of those are silver bullets. There's no, be careful of, we call it CMMC in a box, but there are CMMC in a box solutions that you can customize to your situation, which is just fine, but be careful of those situations where a vendor says, all you need is this little product here and you're fine. You just got to go into that with your eyes wide open and realize that it's not just that little box. It's going to be other things, everything that touches that little box, basically. So, there's quite a bit to that.
Well, thank you, Brooke. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
If you have questions about what we covered, reach out to us. We're here to help fast track your compliance journey. Text, email, or call in your questions and we'll answer them for free here on the podcast. You can find our contact information at CMMCComplianceGuide.com. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, stay compliant, stay secure, and make sure to subscribe.